What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and in this video, I'm going to be going over my top 5 best and worst things about the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. So let's get started. Now first, I'm going to go over my top 5 favorite things about the phone, and then for the second half of the video, I'll be going over my top 5 least favorite things. But coming in at number 1 definitely has to be the display. On this device, we have a great looking 6.5-inch Super AMOLED display that does feature a 120Hz refresh rate. Having that really fast refresh rate gives us a really nice, smooth, premium experience when navigating around the operating system. And due to this phone having a Super AMOLED display, the colors look fantastic. In addition to that, the phone has very good viewing angles as well. So in general, the display on this phone certainly makes this seem like a much more expensive device than it really is. Now, in addition to that, the display is 1080p. We have a PPI of 405. We have a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor here with the phone. And we have an 85.4% screen to body ratio. So pretty small bezels all throughout here. But seriously though, the brightness, colors, and overall crispiness of this display makes this phone ideal for content consumption, and especially if you want to watch videos on the phone, as that's going to look really good. Now my second favorite thing about the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is that we're getting a lot of storage with this device. So with the phone, it is offered in 2 different storage configurations. You can get it with either 128 or 256 gigabytes. And in addition to that, the phone also supports microSD card expansion so that you can offload photos and videos, for example, to clear up some space in the phone. Now you've probably noticed that over time, smartphones in general have been coming with more and more internal storage, and there's definitely a good reason for that. One reason is that the way that you use your phone is likely different from how you used it in the past, considering that video is more important and relevant than ever before. But the second thing to consider as well is that app sizes keep getting larger and larger too. It's certainly not uncommon to look at your apps that you've installed and to see that some of them take up multiple gigabytes of space. So again, having a lot of internal storage is really important, and it's certainly more important now than ever before. Now my third favorite thing about the Galaxy A53 5G definitely has to be the cameras. Not only are we getting really good cameras on this phone, but we're also getting a lot of different camera hardware features. So we have a quad camera setup with this device, giving us a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera that can capture images at up to 123 degrees. We have a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera to assist with portrait mode, and we have a 5 megapixel macro camera to help us take close-up images. Then moving on to the front-facing camera, that's 32 megapixels, and as you can see, it is within this hole punch. So that's also a nice touch that there is no notch with this device. Now here's how things look on the camera app. This is with the main camera right now. Then from here, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera, so we can fit a lot more content into the frame. We can also flip around to the front facing camera, so there's me right there. And then we can also go to portrait mode for that, so we get those nice blurred out backgrounds. There's even a group selfie option, so that we can crop out a bit if you want to fit more people in one front facing photo. We can also take standard selfies, and then flipping back around, we can go over to the More tab here, and we can access macro mode to get close-up images that still retain a lot of detail. So of course, the camera quality with the Galaxy A53 5G is not going to be nearly as good as what you'd get with a really expensive flagship phone like the Galaxy S22 or the iPhone 13, for example. But at the same time, for what this phone is, as a mid-range device from Samsung, not only do we get really good cameras on here, but we also have tons of different features within the camera app, which is definitely great. Now my fourth favorite thing about this device is that we're getting a very good and powerful processor with it. Now the phone features the Samsung Exynos 1280 processor, and with that, as you could probably imagine, since the phone is called the A53 5G, we do get 5G support. So that's awesome because you're able to take advantage of your carrier's latest networking technology, but the actual processor itself is also very fast and responsive. Now it's not a massive improvement necessarily over last year's A52 5G, but it still has a lot to offer, and from my experience of using the phone, it does work really well, so I have no complaints about it. Now in addition to that, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test with the device, and I'll show you the score from that test right now. But essentially, I got a single core score of 742 and a multi-core score of 1910. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of whether or not the Galaxy A53 5G is going to be a performance upgrade for you. Now, there are many things that I like about the Galaxy A53 5G, but coming in at number 5 definitely has to be that we have NFC here. Now, it's pretty surprising that in 2022, not every device out there actually has NFC, but thankfully, the A53 5G does, so that's yet another feature that this phone has that you typically find with a more expensive flagship phone. Now, by having NFC, you can make mobile contactless payments using tap and pay, so you can use either Samsung Pay or Google Pay, and I'm constantly making NFC payments with devices that do support it. So if that's something you do right now on your current device, then just know that if you upgrade to the A53 5G, you're still going to have that feature. Again, I wish NFC was a lot more widespread. In fact, I've seen some people mention in the comment section that they upgraded to a device only to find out that they lost NFC, which is a feature they had with their previous phone. So it's certainly important to always double check those things. But now that I've gone over my top 5 favorite things about the Galaxy A53 5G, let's now go over my top 5 least favorite things about the phone. Now keep in mind, I do think this is a really good device, and a lot of these things are mostly nitpicking, but I do feel like they are things that you will want to know prior to getting the phone so that there aren't any surprises. Now, the first downside with this phone that I wish it didn't have is the lack of a headphone jack. Now, typically with Samsung's A series, we pretty much always get a headphone jack on all the various devices. But this time around in 2022, Samsung has finally started eliminating that on various phones in the A series lineup. Now the A53 5G is one of those phones that no longer has a 3.5mm headphone jack. Now we did have that with the A52 5G from last year. So if that's a feature that you really want, you might want to consider going for the A52 5G instead. However, if you find yourself mostly using Bluetooth earbuds, I suppose it's not a big deal, but I definitely want to make sure you know that there is no headphone jack with this device, so don't buy it expecting there to be one. The second thing I want to point out is the build quality of the phone. Now the good news is that the phone does have a high quality build. The display itself is great looking. It does feature Corning Gorilla Glass 5, which makes it extra durable, but the other materials on the device are made out of plastic. So if you are used to a more premium phone, like one of the higher end Galaxy devices, or an iPhone for example, where you're used to the phone being made out of a mixture of glass and metal, just know with the A53 5G, you are not getting those premium build materials. Now the back panel here is made out of plastic, which probably isn't a surprise, but again, just don't expect to get this phone thinking that it has the same materials that it's built out of as something that's a lot more expensive than it. The next thing I want to mention is that there is no wireless charging with the Galaxy A53 5G. Now this is something that I definitely think they could have included, and it really wouldn't have added too much to the cost of the phone, especially since I've used other devices that are less expensive than this one that do have wireless charging. Now I will admit that as far as mid-range and lower-end phones go, wireless charging isn't something that's necessarily that common to find, so I suppose it does make sense why Samsung didn't include it here with the A53 5G. But if you're currently using a phone that does have wireless charging and you're expecting that to be pretty much a standard feature on any new devices that are launched in 2022, then just know that you are not getting that here with this device. Now moving on, you probably noticed that the box that the A53 5G does come in is quite skinny. And the reason for that is because there is no charger included in the box itself. If you want to get a charger, you'll have to go out and buy one with your own money. Now I suppose that Samsung expects that at this point, most of their customers have wall adapters just laying around that they could use instead. However, this device has 25 watt fast charging as a feature. And in order to actually use the full 25 watt fast charging, you have to use a charger that supports 25 watt charging. Now most of these really low end, cheaper chargers actually max out at 5 watts. So essentially, you're getting 1/5 of the charging speed if you reuse a charger that you currently have. So definitely something worth considering. Now, if you do have some faster chargers, then that's awesome because you can probably use those with this phone then. But if you are using one of your own chargers and you notice the phone seems to be charging pretty slowly, it's likely because that charger is not a full 25 watt charger. Here's my box of chargers that I have, and pretty much all of these chargers max out at either 5 watts or 10 watts. So if I were to hypothetically use one of these chargers with this device, I wouldn't actually be able to charge the phone up at the fastest rate possible. And then for the final thing I want to point out about this device, there is no support for Samsung DeX. Now, if you're not familiar with DeX, then I suppose this isn't too much of a problem. But essentially, DeX is the desktop mode that you can put pretty much any Samsung S-Series device in. So if you plug an S-Series phone, like the Galaxy S22 Ultra for example, into a special adapter and then into your TV, you can actually have that screen double as a full computer screen. So you can actually use your phone as a computer. Now DeX has actually never been supported on any A-Series devices, so it's certainly not surprising that we don't have it here with the A53 5G. However, if you currently have an older S-Series phone or even a Note device, like the Galaxy Note 8 for example, has DeX. So if you're hypothetically going from a Galaxy Note 8 to this phone, expecting that you're going to still have that feature, then just know that it is nowhere to be found with the A53 5G. But this concludes my list of the top 5 best and worst things about the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. In general, I think this is a great handset from Samsung. I'm certainly a big fan of it. Again, I can't get over how great this display looks on the phone, but all in all, I'm really curious to know what you think about these various things that I mentioned in the video. Definitely let me know in the comment section below, but this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a great rest of your day.